Good morning, everyone. May I have your attention, please? Welcome to Government House. As official proceedings will shortly be commencing, now would be an opportune moment to check that your mobile phones are switched off or turned to silent. As the Governor arrives, you will be asked to stand and remain standing. A fanfare will be played, followed by the Vice-Regal salute. This sounds like the Australian national anthem, the distinction being that you do not sing. You'll be given the opportunity to sing the Australian national anthem at the conclusion of the ceremony. Throughout the presentation of awards this morning, please hold your applause until all recipients' names and citations have been read. When I return to the lectern in a few moments, it will be to announce the arrival of the Governor. Thank you. Would you please be upstanding for the arrival of Her Excellency, Professor the Honourable Margaret Gardner, Governor of Victoria.
Please be seated. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which this house stands, the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Eastern Kulin Nations, and pay my respect to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. Your Excellency, I invite you to present the honours and awards in the Order of Australia. To be officers in the General Division, Emeritus Professor Richard Charles Dow, for distinguished service to audiology, to the development of the cochlear implant for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, and to tertiary education. Gerald Murnane, for distinguished service to literature as an author and novelist and to tertiary education. To be members in the General Division, David Elliott, for significant service to the superannuation industry through executive roles. The late Norman Abraham Pfeiffer, to be received by his son, Ethan Pfeiffer, in recognition of his significant service to the building and construction industry and to the community. Associate Professor Myron Goldwasher, for significant service to orthopaedic surgery and to clinical education and training. Dr. Jennifer Ann Harrison, for significant service to youth and children's psychiatry and to the arts. Associate Professor Anne Margaret Howard, for significant service to dermatology as a clinician, teacher, examiner and mentor. The Reverend Emeritus Professor Philip John Hughes, for significant service to the sociology of religion, to academia, to social cohesion and to the community. Michael Kennedy, for significant service to snow sport development and advancement in Australia and to international sport governance. Emeritus Professor Nicolette Delphine Lee, for significant service to tertiary education and to curricular policy and practice development. Professor Richard Allen McDonnell, for significant service to neurology, to clinical electrophysiology and to tertiary education. The late, the Honourable Kate McMillan, to be received by her husband, William Summons, in recognition of her significant service to the judiciary, to the law and to the community. Dr. Rebecca Elizabeth Spindler, for significant service to conservation science, to wildlife reproduction research, and to biodiversity protection. The Honourable Justice Kristen Louise Walker, for significant service to the law and the judiciary, and to legal education. To receive the Medal of the Order of Australia in the General Division, Gary Noel Adams, for service to sport and to the community. Ramzi Al Saeed for service to the Islamic community of Victoria. Dr. John William Grafdyke for service to the community through cancer support groups. John Greenwood Smith for service to the community through emergency response organisations. Marcus Greenblatt for service to the community through emergency response organisations. Jeffrey Mervyn Harvey for service to the community through a range of organisations. Michael Norman Hawking for service to cricket and to sports administration. David James Iser for service to medicine as a general practitioner. The late Alan Jenkins to be received by his wife, Valerie Jenkins, in recognition of his service to fraternal organisations and to the community. Robert Norman Johnston for service to the community and to secondary education. Patricia Kay for service to the community of Gisborne. Jennifer Mary Carney for service to the community of Bacchus Marsh. Gary King for service to the community of Cooey Rup. Jeffrey Eric King for service to broadcast media. Kenneth David Kinlock for service to youth and to the community. Stephen Francis Laffin for service to the community through voluntary roles with sporting associations. Anthony Larkin for service to secondary education and to school sports. Alex Lazlowski for service to medical science and to anatomical pathology. Robert John Lahunt for service to the plastics industry. Sister Mary Jane Veronica Lynch for service to rural and remote nursing. Anna Kyriakidis Mars for service to the museums and galleries sector. Jennifer McKay for service to primary education. Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Anthony Maloney for service to rugby union and to the community. Talia May for service to the Jewish community. The late Jeffrey Charles McCracken to be received by his wife, Beverly McCracken, in recognition of his service to Australian rules football. The late Marion Elizabeth McKinnon to be received by her son, Stuart James McKinnon, in recognition of her service to community history. Merle Elizabeth Miller, for service to the Indigenous community of Victoria. Saurav Mishra, for service to the community through a range of organisations. Prudence Jean Molnar, for service to the community through a range of organisations. Darren Anthony Mort, for service to the law. Andrew Lewis Mullett, for service to Australian rules football. David Patrick O'Brien, for service to the community through the not-for-profit sector. Kevin O'Brien, for service to rowing. The late Brian Francis O'Connor, to be received by his wife, Geraldine O'Connor, in recognition of his service to local government and to the community. Anne Gillian Oliver, for service to the community through a range of roles. Christine Jennifer Oliver, for service to the communities of the East Gippsland region and to youth. Leo Harmon Optenbrow, for service to the community of East Gippsland. Dr. Anne Pang, for service to the Chinese community of Melbourne and to women. Rodney David Payne, for service to the community through the not-for-profit sector. Dr. Nigel Kent Taylor, for service to life-saving in Victoria. Please join Her Excellency in congratulating all of today's recipients. Your Excellency, I now invite you to address us.
Fred Harrington, Chair, the Order of Australia Association Victoria Branch, distinguished guests, one and all, it's a great pleasure to see you all here this morning. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and the Boonwurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nations, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and recognise other elders in the room with us today. These investitures are really wonderful, joyful ceremonies. The ballroom always seems the right place for them. So just over the Yarra stands a monument paying tribute to the legacy of one of Victoria's greatest athletes. You may have passed it along Olympic Boulevard on the way here. It depicts John Landy, a boy from Castlemaine who became one of the world's best middle distance runners. And yet the statue doesn't honour Landy's athletic achievements. It immortalises an important moment that took place 70 years ago. At that time, Landy was at the top of his game. He held the world record for the mile, and with the Melbourne 1956 Olympic Games only a few months away, expectations for what he would do couldn't have been any higher. But it was during the Australian Mile Championship race at Olympic Park that a fellow runner named Ron Clark tripped and fell directly in front of Landy in that race. Landy tried his best to leap over him, but in doing so he caught Clark's shoulder with the spikes of his shoe. Landy could have simply kept running. It was a race after all. Instead, he stopped and doubled back. He apologised, made sure Clark wasn't badly hurt, and then helped him to his feet. The two men then began running again together. By then, the rest of the field had opened a considerable lead. But astoundingly, over the final 2 laps, Landy caught up with them all and won. It was an extraordinary performance that would later be voted the finest Australian sporting moment of the 20th century. Yet the reason we remember it today, the reason it's immortalised in that statue, isn't because John Landy won the race. It was because when Clark fell, Landy didn't stop to calculate what helping Clark might mean for him. His response was instant and instinctive. Another person needed a hand, he lent one. Landy was later appointed Companion of the Order of Australia, recognised not only for his contribution to sport, but for his work in rural research, environmental awareness, and the wider community. And the 26th Governor of Victoria was, of course, the culmination of his career. And as the 26th Governor, he too stood here and presented honours to Australians whose service and achievement had earned national recognition. Today, that's what we're doing. It's your service, those who are awarded today, your achievements, the contributions you've made over many years that we recognise. And sometimes, sadly, we are recognising them with family members receiving the medals. The recognition is as important. And that recognition, we can see why it's given in the citations. Because the instinct to lend a hand can be expressed in many different ways. It can be seen in the person who draws on their many years of knowledge and experience to improve their field, to solve difficult problems, help others succeed. It can be seen in the volunteer who returns week after week because a club, a charity, a community organisation depends upon good people willing to help. It can be seen in those who accept responsibility in a moment of crisis or great danger. If you were to visit Landy's statue on Olympic Boulevard, you'll find a letter inscribed on the plaque underneath. It was penned to Landy by a sports journalist in the days after that famous race. In it, the journalist wrote, "A lot of people are wondering why you pulled up. The truth is, of course, that you didn't think about it. It was the instinctive action of someone whose mate was in trouble." For the recipients here today, I'm sure you were not thinking about this kind of acknowledgement as you went about your work. I'm sure you weren't calculating on personal benefit. And you may not even fully appreciate, as those who were your referees did, the full impact of your service. But you did it and you do it anyway. And so today, we give public recognition that is often not sought, but is richly deserved. The value of what you do and have done will continue to be felt for many years to come. It will live on in the people you've taught, the institutions you've strengthened, the knowledge you've shared, the opportunities you've created. More than any statue or medal, that's the monument. That's your legacy. Just like John Landy on that fateful day, you've all demonstrated the impulse to lend a hand, and we're all lifted as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. If you are able to do so, would you please stand and join heartily in singing the first verse of the Australian National Anthem, and remain standing for the departure of Her Excellency.
That concludes official proceedings for today. On behalf of all of us at Government House, we congratulate all of the award recipients. The State Apartments will now be open for your viewing. On behalf of the Governor, we invite you to stay and to enjoy the hospitality of Government House. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.